All right, the AI revolution we all thought was a big thing. Is it busting? Is the bubble here? It looks like it is, and so there's three reasons for this. Is first off is the usefulness of AI. We really haven't found the next killer app yet. Like, what is it really good at? Other than like, I keep making this joke, but like, what is it good at? Meme creation,
chit chat,
chit chat, bad blog articles, kind of good YouTube thumbnails, like that's kind of where it is, and then the cost of running these things is exorbitant. I think we're just now going to see where people have raised money for a certain service and these things will start contracting because, I mean, you can only run so long on VC money. Eventually you have to turn a profit. So my question is, do you think we're going to see the bubble quicker than we thought? And like, what is the big thing? We thought that this was going to change the world. And then we find out it can't do drive-through orders. It can't fix email. I've yet to see it code a web page that's competent at a professional level. It can make a web page. As far as replacing coders, we're like decades away from that, and then everyone's telling me, wait till ChatGPT 5 comes out. And I'm like, still waiting.
They said that about 4 when we had 3.
Yeah.
So
still waiting. Right. And then we've made some incremental updates at this point, but I don't think there's anything big coming. And we haven't yet seen it replace doctors, lawyers, or any kind of market segment where we're like, oh, wow, that's a game changer. We haven't seen a game changer yet. So what do you think? Do you think this is going to bust? What do you think?
Well, and every game-changing try at use case has failed incredibly. Like you just said, it can't take drive-through orders. There was a lawyer and we talked about that guy who tried to use ChatGPT in his legal briefs. Did not work. It lying left and right and things like that. Like it's so bad that it may kill itself before it even has a chance to gain some traction.
Yeah. My thinking is, I think there is a short-term and a long-term here. I think there is a short-term bubble that will burst, but I think long-term it sticks around, right? So I think part of that problem is that I can't remember who this quote came from, but it's not an exact quote, but the idea here is that we overestimate short-term improvements and underestimate long-term ones. So we expect the same big wow moments consistently, right? We had our wow moment with GPT when it was released, right? When ChatGPT came out, that was a wow moment. This is work that had happened for a decade before, but the implementation of it was a wow moment. And we've had a few since when generative AI with imagery and with some of these video things, and the songs that we make at the end here, those are all wow moments. But I think we've had those now on this current implementation. I think improvements are now going to be incremental improvements because people have to remember how these things fundamentally work. The difference between ChatGPT 3 and ChatGPT 5 is just the amount of training data they give it. It's just more data. That's all. It's just ingested more data to train more stuff. It's not fundamentally different in any other way. It's ultimately going to do the same thing, which giving it more data may be smarter. But here's the problem. We've given it all the data. We've literally fed it the internet. We fed it 2 decades worth of knowledge, right, from the internet. And while you may say the difference between this year and last year, yes, maybe the internet's grew by 20% or whatever it is, the amount of data on it. The problem is at least half of that data that it's grown by was AI generated. So this comes back to the same thing I talked about before. It is the machine feeding itself. And I just don't think that ends well. I don't see that being a good thing and ultimately kills it. Because we know that, let's say that you take the internet growth and then you take half of that as being AI, we know probably half of that is also wrong because it generates incorrect things. So if you're just feeding it more incorrect things, its output's going to be more incorrect. Right. I just don't see it being good. I don't think we've got another wow moment in this generation.
And so I want to be clear what I think is going to happen. Like, you can look at OpenAI's numbers and they doubled in revenue in the last 12 months. So they're at 3.4 billion. I haven't yet seen if they made money or yet or not.
Well, because they're not telling us
right,
yet,
yeah. So 3.4 billion in revenue, top line revenue, but no one knows how much does this actually cost to run. It's got to be
it's not
more
making
than
money.
That. They would say if they were
100%.
So the question I have is, when I talk about is there a bubble? How many ChatGPT products do we need? And can Google win, Claude win, and IBM and Oracle and all the other large language models and can OpenAI, all of those guys, are we going to pay $20 a month for multiples of these? I don't think so.
No.
And then there's going to be some free ones that come out that you can run locally on disk, and they'll get smaller. And if they're like 85% of what a full-fledged $20 or $30 a month ChatGPT is, I think that's where the vast majority of the market goes. And someone will take something like that and just give it away for some other reason. And so will it be integrated into everything we do? Maybe. But I don't think the consumer, the direct to consumer, may not pay for it. And that's where you might see suddenly these features go away because it costs us $1 billion a year to put AI in Instagram. And they're like, what are we doing? Like, do we really need AI in Instagram? It worked.
Yeah. Who's really using it?
Yeah. It just becomes an expected feature, right, of the thing. I guess that's the thing. It's kind of like buying a TV these days and them saying it's HD. Well, duh.
Yeah, I mean,
of course it is, right? Whereas like 10 years ago,
it better be 4K.
Right, 10 years ago, that would have been like the big feature, right? That would be a differentiator.
Right.
You would need that in your TV. Now it's going to be like, well, duh, of course it has an LLM chat interface. Like, why would it not? Like, it's just going to be a commodity. And I think they're going to be powered by a couple of them. I think that's going to be it. My opinion, we're going to see Google and whatever, Microsoft. And maybe that's going to be it.
And I thought by now we would see like distinct LLMs that do distinct things. And like no one's caught on to that. I'm really shocked that the lawyer LLM, maybe some lawyers could call us in and say, hey, I'm using this. It's a research assistant. It does pretty well. But I've yet to read an article where large law firm says this has changed our workflow. It doesn't replace lawyers, but it's changed. I haven't seen that yet.
Because it doesn't.
Right.
Because they can't trust it.
Right.
It's literally the biggest trust thing you need as a lawyer. It has to be correct. Because you're going to present it to a judge and he's going to say, if it's not correct, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, you can go to jail.
So it has to be correct.
Decided,
There's no way they're going to trust it.
It's
not trustworthy.
I have friends, people say it's going to change. The one thing they were saying that it would diagnose better than a doctor can do. And I have friends that work at a large hospital here, and they're trying to like look at CT scans and all these images and trying to diagnose things. And they're kind of far away from that, even though there's multiple full-time people. It's not like they're not smart or not doing good work. I'm sure they are. It's just not quite there yet. And so the big thing that this needs, like, is it email? I mean, like email had all of these ancillary uses that generated billions of dollars because you could send an email to someone and they would buy something. I don't know where the utility of AI is yet. Can it help us write a blog article? Yeah.
Yeah.
But what's the ultimate end game of that, though?
Yeah. Right.
To fill the internet with AI written blog articles that feed back itself? Like, that's...
More pink slime?
Yeah,
exactly.
And then the question remains like, okay, so let's say you have a company and let's put it frank. OpenAI needs 100 million users at $20 a month. There's got to be 100 million people using this. So is company A with 400 employees say, you know what? Everyone needs ChatGPT.
No.
I don't think they are. I mean, like, it's just like,
100%.
We have 2 copies of it at our offices. So like no one else needs it. Some of us have Copilot. I have both, because Copilot is a convenience factor for me. I probably could get rid of ChatGPT, but I use it in a different way and I use Copilot in a different way. So I actually pay for 2 subscriptions. So I feel like I'm on the upper echelon of the use base that would buy 2 versions of this to use for 2 different things. But not everyone's in that use case.
Yeah, the best thing that I am using AI for in my job is, so I have agents and they talk to my customers all day long.
Okay.
Right? And I am looking at this ticket and I have a phone call, right? We have AI in our ticketing system where I can just say summarize call and it like gives me a summary of what happened in that phone call. And that's fairly useful, but it's not always accurate still. So
like I said, there's a lot of nuances in a phone call between 2 people, right?
Right.
And when you've recorded it, and then I'm assuming it's transcribing the call too, right? So you're getting a transcript of the call, and then it's summarizing that transcript as well. There's a lot of nuances that happen there, especially when, let's say that somebody like, they jokingly they're like, hey, would you like to do this? And they say no, but they really mean yes. And it's like, and the nuance means yes, right? And the person on the other end really genuinely knows that, but the AI doesn't know that. It's like it can't get context and nuance and those kind of things. It just doesn't understand that because ultimately you're just giving it text, right? So, I could see that.
Yeah. So again, like while it's somewhat useful, I still have to go back and listen to calls all the time. Like, it's not really taking away a lot of my job,
right? And,
right.
and when we were looking at Presto, the other AI order taker for Wendy's and I think Carl's Jr.'s, and it seemingly does a really good job. And then you read, no one tells you how much it costs, but they said it will save you 1 FTE a year per store. And you're thinking, okay, if you multiply that by all the Wendy's stores, you're like, oh, that's billions of dollars, but 1 FTE per store? And then you got to think, well, I got to put hardware. I know I've got a monthly fee on this thing. So like, how much money am I actually saving? And that's when they throw in, well,
none. You're costing.
It seems
more.
like it would cost more. And then your accuracy goes down on top of that, whereas the human will eventually always get the order right. And even if it's wrong, they can help soothe the customer and say, hey, sorry about that. I thought you said double. You meant a single. Just keep the double. It's on us, And
I think this is part of the problem with that is the initial investment is too much because I'm assuming the recoup time for that, right? It's probably, let's say it's 3 years. Let's say it's 5 years. It's something in that mark. The problem is that technology, you have no idea if it's going to be good for that amount of time. You have no idea if it's going to be good, period, to start off with, because it's not, right? It's not great at doing what it does now. Does it get better? Maybe not. So are you going to keep it that amount of time? Because there might be backlash from customers that says, well, I don't like the AI ordering system at Wendy's because it never gets my order right, so I'm not going to go there anymore. And then it tanks your business. And you're like, well, now we just got to, we can't use it anymore, right? We've got to listen, we've got to scrap it, so go back to employees, just wasted all that money.
But what if Presto is working on VC money and they're paying ChatGPT, $100 million a year in hopes of that they would sign up every customer and they don't, and suddenly they can't make their open AI bill and they just pull it.
That's a bubble.
And so suddenly you can't take orders.
We're talking about.
And so while that's a risk with any technology, we don't think about that things in utilities. Like, is this company just going to go away and quit giving me internet? More than likely, no. Is the power going to go away? Are they going to quit delivering power? No. Is there a reasonable chance that the company that's running an LLM model for the service that I rely on could go out of business because it can't pay the internet bill? And it's like, yeah. Because this is costing billions of dollars, and people don't estimate well, how much are the chips? It's not just the chips. It's the power. It's the footprint. It's the space. Yeah. Or if you're renting it, OpenAI is charging them. They have to charge an arm and a leg for this to get back their recoup
and
their losses.
This is why I think there's a short-term bubble here because of those costs, because you have the initial costs of the chips, very expensive.
Yeah.
So the initial infrastructure part is extremely expensive. Then you're right. Then there's a power issue. Some of the data centers that are running these things are using the same power that entire countries use.
Yeah, or it's the power. Like I read a story in Texas where some of these are running in Texas, like they're using the power of an entire city, and so they have to the grid can't support it. So what do? Well, they have to figure out something else. Where literally Mark Zuckerberg was saying, we're going to have to invest in nuclear to do this, and you're like, does someone need to stop and think before we build a nuclear reactor? So what if this doesn't work out? We have just a nuclear reactor sitting out here in Meadowland. It's cool to have, I guess, I mean, Batman probably has a nuclear reactor. So why can't Mark Zuckerberg have one? So, but it just seems like, what's the end game? What is the app? What is the thing this thing's ultimately going to be, that's going to do, that's going to change the world and reduce costs, reduce jobs, reduce employment?
I'll also say people underestimate on the cost side of things as well. People underestimate or don't necessarily understand how it works and why there's an energy cost at all. It's because of the compute cost. It's because of how these things work. It's because every time you send a message to ChatGPT, let's say in this instance, it's calculating. It's running through the GPU. It's running cycles. It has to do something. It's not like Google search where it's cached.
Right.
There is no cache here. It's not running through a cache. It's going in, it's sending data into a black box. It's computing using power, and then it's spitting something out. Every single time you interact with it, it does that. That cost is insane.
It's insane. And so, I do think we're going to see some bubble here. Some companies will go out of business. Is it this year? I don't know. But at the cost rate, the spin rate, you're going to see it happen. And so people think it probably won't happen. It's going to expand indefinitely. The internet didn't expand indefinitely. You can look at Cisco's stock price, and it was at very high. It looks just like NVIDIA does today. And then it went down, and that never recovered, even though we still continue to build out the internet. We still continue to build it. It got commoditized, got cheaper, and you can't cost this much to have something this expensive with low utility. The internet was way more useful in this than AI is right now. I just think I don't know if it's a revolution or is it a product. I'm not really sure what it is yet.
Yeah. Something you guys said like just made me think about the movie Social Network, right? When he's talking to Justin Timberlake, who is representing the guy who invented Napster, right?
Yeah, Sean Fanning.
And he says like, hey, you want to like get a Tower Records or like you want to go to Tower Records or something like that. And it's indicative of like when Napster failed massively, but was the like kind of starting point for everything that is happening now where Blockbuster doesn't exist, Tower Records doesn't exist, all of these things that have changed because of that technology, basically. And like, if he didn't invent it, somebody probably would have eventually. But our current streaming genre basically started there. And I feel like kind of the similar thing to AI, where like this initial implementation might fail and we'd see a lot of like losing steam, but it's gonna change the way a lot of things are done in the future.
That's exactly where I look at this. I think there's a short-term bubble, but there's long-term play here. I think it sticks around. I think there's other inventions in it. I think there's other things will happen. But we're at this point now where, people spent $50 billion on chips, just purchasing the chips last year. These companies then made $3 billion in revenue. Like, you can't have that. Like, that's so
And they're not even showing
one-sided.
us the power bill.
Right, exactly. And that's just on the hardware.
That's just the hardware.
Or the people, or, the amount of people they have working there. So, like, you
can only run it for so long this way. And I think I also think there's some kind of underhandedness here too, because I also think they have to keep the money coming in. They have to keep convincing people this is the next big thing. And the way they keep doing that, I think, is deceptive because they keep talking about AGI like it's just around the corner. You hear Sam Altman talking about this all the time because he knows as soon as they stop talking about that and the possibility of that goes away, because it has gone away. It's not happening. I'm calling it right now. The LLMs are not the gateway to AGI.
It really does.
They will
feel
keep telling
like
us that to bring money
in a lot of ways. A more fancy version, but like when they said "is hot dog" and he looks at it and he goes, "Is that all there is?" And he goes, "Yeah." Right. I mean, the initial thing, oh, that's kind of cool. Can it do a hamburger? No, it's hot dog. It's like, okay, that's it. Okay. So is this just going to write blog articles and make memes? I would put the art, like Kevin does a real good job with AI, but I would still put it in its mid-tier.
Yeah,
art
it is.
Compared to what other people can do and what we would do, but a lot more time. It's cheaper. It's faster. Idea generation, research, that's kind of cool if you can rely on it. But far as like ending all human work and putting us on universal basic income, I mean, like that's a pipe dream, man. That's not.
And that is a dream they have to keep selling though, because they have to keep selling that dream to keep the money coming in. That's it.
I also think Copilot in my iteration that I have right now will eventually be free, because I think people will eventually quit paying for it.
Oh, for sure.
And so like, or they won't have enough people to pay for it, therefore they can't afford to operate it. Yeah. And I think that's the same thing with ChatGPT at $20 a month. Really? What happens when they come out and go, you know what? It's $39.99 now. How many people cancel?
Oh, so many.
I don't think the price can go up. I
don't think they're Netflix where they can do that, are they? Where they can continually go up and say no password
Netflix
sharing.
isn't $40 a month.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot for what you would get with ChatGPT.
Yeah. So I just think there's a bubble coming, and it's just not what everyone said it was. The thing that I want to caution people on is they shouldn't make life-changing decisions like what job I'm going to do, what education I'm going to pursue, based on this threat that it's going to end a certain segment. Yeah, and whether that's coding, lawyering, or doctoring, or customer service, or whatever they think it's going to replace, it's not going to do it. I don't even know if it can replace customer service people. I really don't. I think a company would go out of business.
I agree. I don't think it will. There's too much pushback. There's too much pushback against the technology side of it. People want to work with other people.
Yeah, and just remember, we've tried this before with they called IVR systems, where you could talk to it or push buttons, and they tried to eliminate customer service that way. And the first thing you do is hit 0 for operators. As soon as you hear it, you're 0. Because you wanted to talk to a human because you didn't want to talk to the thing.
Yep.
So I have a stat for you. So I literally, because I deployed a chatbot for our company and I programmed the chatbot and everything. But the first thing the chatbot asks you is, do you want to chat? Do you want to talk to somebody real?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So out of 362 chats that get initiated, 185 people, this is just over the last 7 days, 185 people said yes, they want to talk to somebody real.
Wow. There you go. That tells you instantly. It's more than half instantly just don't even want to deal with it. Which makes you think when a company puts all their eggs in that basket and they force people into that,
they quit using the product.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. They're going to get, they're getting the soft no, right? They're just getting the, no, I'm not even going to bother anymore. Like, I have a feeling that Wendy's is going to see a decline because of that AI drive-through. I think we see them just abandon it just because of that. Whether it works or not doesn't matter, because people will just say, I'm just not interested in talking to an AI to get that order done. It's like, it's a difficult thing to overcome, but I don't think they're going to have the kind of the stamina to overcome it.
That, and I think it's going to be more expensive than they think.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't save them money, and it doesn't give you 6% upsell. I don't know if it can do that.
I don't know. That's what they say. You want a?
Do you want fries? Do you want fries with that?
Yeah. You want a Frosty with that?
They just throw it in there and add it to the bill. I mean, that's how they can do it. Like, oops, sorry about that. I'm just an AI.
Oh.
I get things wrong. Sorry.
I didn't want 100 iced teas, but
I guess I'll take them.
Give them to me.
Can at least get them in a gallon jug and not in individual cups.